Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. From DC Comics under their Black label, we're going to be talking about Danger Street, issue number 9. Written by Tom King, art by Jorge Fornes, colors by Dave Stewart, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help. Hit that bell. You never know when I'm going to be dropping videos. It will keep you in touch. It's all free. Doesn't cost you anything. Alright, let's get into it. So there's a lot to catch up. I do have a playlist for Danger Street if you are not caught up. But we are getting pretty close to the end. Issue 9 at 12. I will say that every issue started out with Dr. Fate's helmet kind of telling us the story. This one does not. It doesn't feature the helmet or a narration at all. We just start out at the rooftop with Assassin and Manhunter basically. Assassin called out Manhunter and told him to meet at the top of the rooftop. I think the Commodore, the last member of the Green Team, is inside the building that they're fighting on top of. This whole, I want to say 75% of this book is the sword fight, which was dope in itself. But there is dialogue that goes through, and most of the dialogue has a major point. But basically, to sum it up, it's between two people that are like stubborn, stuck in their way, intelligent, and they're both listening to each other. But at the same time, most of the conversation goes into like what happens from the outcome of this fight. So Assassin basically stating that there's one of three things that's going to happen. One of them's going to kill the other, the other's going to kill the other, or they're going to end up in a tie kind of thing, and they both die. And while this happens, everything that's stated is kind of, like argumentative in an intelligent way against what is brought up. So Manhunter basically is he doesn't see those outcomes. Even if he wins, loses, or comes in a draw, he sees a different kind of outcome, a different outlook kind of thing. And that's most of this conversation, is them going back and forth on who would have the upper hand kind of thing. Evenly, it's a draw. They are pretty, once the fight starts out, they're slashed up, they're both bloody. They're still able at this time, but the only one that really gets the upper hand in most of it is Manhunter at one point with this kick where he knocks back Assassin. But kind of at this point, they kind of do like a parlay. There's a little bit of sword fighting, a little bit of conversation, but they're kind of evenly matched. There is no upper hand. They're both top tier assassins, so to speak. There is a lot of conversation about their origins and stuff like that, when they started killing. Assassins being a lot more sinister than Manhunters, but both on the evil side of things kind of thing. They're assassins. But eventually they do kind of stop the sword play, and they actually parlay, and they actually go sit on a rooftop, and they have this conversation back and forth. Manhunter pulls out a flask that he had hidden, which Assassin, he's kind of this know-it-all type of thing, and he was kind of flabbergasted that Manhunter was able to hide the flask. But they share a little bit of whiskey, and it comes one of the sinister parts of the parlay, I should say, because the second the parlay comes up, and it's brought about by Manhunter, Assassin's kind of like, oh, you're just going to trust that I'm going to take this parlay, even though I was the one who, set this whole situation up. So the way Assassin looks at it is like, I set this, our duel up, so I have the upper hand because I chose the arena and stuff like that. The whole time Manhunter is conflicting those outlooks kind of thing. He's like, I mean, even if you pick the place, I have the upper hand because yada yada yada. So at this point, Assassin kind of uses this parlay moment, and he uses his ability. He has this, like, I guess, telekinetic ability that he can use and pick up stuff. He does. They go into flipping a coin at this point. Manhunter's like, hey, why don't we just flip a coin? At least it'll be up to chance. We're evenly matched. If we flip a coin, whoever calls it, one of us would just fall off the edge. And eventually, like the first flip, it does lend to Assassin, which I want to say Manhunter made it do that. but he didn't call it. On the second flip, that's when the ability comes out, and at that point he's like, I could have done this differently. And they go into the explanation of his ability and how he learned it. He explains that anybody could have learned it if they spent the time, kind of thing. But he explains that at the very beginning of the fight, he could have just picked him up and lifted him, out in the air like he's doing so now. Manhunter the whole time is so dope because he sits there and listens to this guy talk as he's being floated over nothingness, like, hundreds of floors up in the air. And he kind of knows that this guy's not going to drop him because the assassin's kind of like he's on this, like, win kick, and he wouldn't see it as a qualifying, win or whatever. Eventually, Assassin does drop Manhunter, and there is like this kind of expression from Manhunter or whatever, and we kind of see him fall and stuff. There is a moment where Assassin does call the Commodore, and it seems like he's gonna, tell him that, hey, I just ended the fight, and Manhunter, he's on his way to his death. But before that even happens, and Assassin starts picking up the coin, he does stop him from his death, right here. And he literally brings it back up. He tells the Commodore that he's almost finished. Commodore gets pissed. He's like, "You're such a tease. Tell me when it's done," kind of thing. They get brought back up here. They kind of go back to the coin flip, which gets tossed away. And eventually they go back to swords. This is where one of the cooler parts of the book comes out, because as soon as they pick up their swords, Manhunter does not hesitate, and he throws his sword at Assassin, and literally like goes straight into some vital stuff. It doesn't, Assassin is not totally down, but you can see even right here he can't even talk. He's all like, I mean, this dude's down. But Manhunter does the whole villain talk, and we kind of learned that this was part of the plan. He knew that he was going to float him at some point. He needed him to use his ability to wear down so he could throw the sword, so he wouldn't be able to stop the sword with his mental ability or whatever, and that's how he was able to do it. So technically it was all part of the plan, kind of thing. But before Assassin is totally out, he does draw a sword. He manages to cut Manhunter's leg off, like totally off, like. But even at this point, they're still not done. It kind of reminds me of the Monty Python with the knight, with his leg. I mean, both of them are pretty much dead. They go to one last, like, final lunge, and I don't know why Manhunter does this, but he lunges up top, Assassin lunges low, and sure enough, Assassin ends up piercing Manhunter and ultimately, killing him. But as we see, it's pretty much, it ends in the tie, which they kind of brought up at the first point. They both end up dying, and they kind of show us right here as they fade to black. But it's not over, because the conversation continues, and at this point it's they get metaphorical as far as, like, talking about who won this and who won that, but ultimately it looks like Manhunter did, because all along he had a plan. He knew even if he was taken out that the Commodore still needed to die, so he had hired some people or something like that, which I think we've seen in the background. But they are on their way to kill Commodore right now, so even though he ended up dying and he wasn't able to kill the Commodore's going to die. There's still even an argument that like, and he claims that he won. There's still an argument that, basically Assassin's like, well, I mean, we died in this moment. He's not dead yet, so technically I still won because I stopped you, kind of thing, and the Commodore is kind of alive. It is a great conversation, but that's basically where it ends it off. And it even says, like, to be continued. So I'm not, we don't necessarily know if this is the afterlife, if they're dead. It doesn't go into all that. The very end of the issue, there is a preview for, Tom King's Wonder Woman that just came out this week. But that's basically it. There's no conversation past that, at that final point, with them still butting heads about this and that, but all in all, it was a great issue. But there is no Dr. Fate. This is the one issue where, even though he's featured on the cover that I got, no, it's the one irregular. But that is my review. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm still loving it. This was a fantastic issue. Even though it was all action, it was still tons of dialogue. I don't know. That's all I got for you guys. Bye.